The forest of Mirka was burning, trees cracked like bones, smoke curled into the sky, and the air smelled like ash and blood. Firelight danced over broken branches, and something moved between the flames. Jaren, a human soldier, stepped over a fallen log. His boots crunched the scorched leaves, his face was tired, his body strong but bruised. He had been walking for hours, following strange sounds and old distress signals. He was supposed to be on leave, but peace was never his friend. Paused, his eyes scanning the trees. Everything was too quiet now. The kind of quiet that came just before something horrible. He gripped his rifle and crouched low, listening, breathing slow. Suddenly he heard it. A soft whimper, like a scared animal. But it wasn't an animal. He followed the sound, stepping carefully through the smoke. Under a large piece of fallen metal he found them, two small alien girls no older than 6, huddled together. Their skin was pale blue, their clothes torn and dirty. Their large eyes glowed softly in the darkness. One of them was crying. The other was shaking but still held her sister tightly. Jaren froze, blinking in shock. What were children doing here, and where were their parents? He knelt down slowly, putting his rifle aside. "Hey," he whispered. "It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." The older girl flinched, shielding her sister. "Don't take us," she whispered, her voice cracking. "They already took Mama and Papa." Jaren's heart dropped. He had seen war, death, and cruelty, but this was something else. These girls were alone, scared, and hiding in a forest full of monsters. "I'm here to help," he said, gently. "What's your name?" The older one said, "Nyla," and pointed to her sister. "She's V," Jaren nodded. "Okay, Nyla and V. I'm Jaren. Let's get you out of here." But before he could move, something roared in the trees behind him, a deep, guttural sound that shook the ground. The girls screamed and clung to him. From the shadows, a beast stepped out. It was huge, 6 legs, armored skin, a mouth full of teeth, and a bone-white mask covering its face. It growled and charged. Jaren reacted fast, rolling to the side and grabbing his rifle. He fired 3 shots, one hitting the beast in the eye. It screamed, crashing into a tree and falling still. Smoke swirled around him, but Jaren didn't waste time. He picked up V in one arm, grabbed Nyla's hand, and ran. They dashed through the forest, dodging flames and falling trees. Beasts howled in the distance. The ground shook with their footsteps. Jaren knew more were coming, and he couldn't fight all of them, not with 2 children in his arms. He found a small cave near the riverbank and rushed inside. It was dark and cold, but safe for the moment. He set the girls down and checked his gear. Half a magazine of bullets left, 1 knife, 1 broken radio. "Are they coming?" "Are they?" Nyla asked, voice trembling. "Yes," Jaren said honestly. "But they'll have to go through me first." He looked out at the burning forest, his jaw tight. This wasn't just a rescue. It was now a war. He didn't know why these creatures wanted the twins or what they really were, but he knew one thing. He would not let them die. Not today. Not while he was still breathing. The fire outside the cave was dying, but danger still lived in the trees. Jaren stood at the entrance, his rifle ready. His eyes moved across the smoke-filled forest. Nothing moved, but he didn't relax. He had fought too many battles to trust. Silence. Behind him, Nyla and V sat close together, their small blue faces still stained with dust and tears. V held a broken stuffed toy, half burnt, her little fingers clinging to it like it was life itself. Jaren turned to them. "You said they took your parents. Who were they?" he asked softly. Nyla looked up, her voice shaking. "The beasts. They came from the woods. They smelled us. They hate our kind. They say our blood makes them stronger." Jaren froze. That made no sense. These weren't normal animals. Something, or someone, was using them, controlling them, the mask on the beast he killed. It wasn't natural. It looked made, shaped by hands. "Did they say anything?" Jaren asked again. Nyla hesitated. "They had voices, not like animals. One of them spoke human words. It said we were half-bloods and needed for the change." Jaren's mind spun. Half-bloods, change. That sounded like genetic tampering, military testing, dark things he'd heard whispered during his years in the deep campaigns. But why here? Why these children? Suddenly, a loud cracking sound echoed through the trees. Followed by a howl, Jaren stepped out of the cave and raised his rifle. Through the smoke came shapes, thin, tall, fast-moving creatures with glowing red eyes. They were not just wild. They moved with purpose, forming a line. Surrounding the area like trained soldiers, Jaren's blood ran cold. He fired the first shot. The bullet slammed into one of the beasts, dropping it. But 3 more charged forward, claws slashing, teeth bared. Jaren rolled, slashed with his knife, and kicked one back. His rifle jammed, so he swung it like a club. Bones cracked, blood sprayed, and the beasts fell. But so did he. A claw tore into his leg, blood pouring fast. He gritted his teeth, grabbed a broken branch and stabbed it deep into the beast's neck. It collapsed with a final hiss. He limped back into the cave, dragging one of the dead beasts with him. His hands shook, but his mind was calm. Battle calm, that old soldier. Fire had returned. He set the beast's body down and tore off the white mask. Underneath was flesh, but not natural. It looked like twisted muscle and wires, something made in a lab. Something cruel. Nyla stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. That's not the same as the forest beasts. This one is different. This one was made. Jaren nodded. I think you're right. He searched the body. Tucked inside its armor, he found a small black device. A tracker, maybe even a signal beacon. His worst fear was true. These things weren't just hunting. They were tracking. And they knew exactly where the twins were. We need to move, Jaren said, tearing up part of his own sleeve to wrap his bleeding leg. We can't stay here. They'll come back with more. V clung to her sister, her tiny voice like a whisper in the dark. Will they hurt us again? Jaren looked at her, then at the burning forest outside. Not while I breathe, he said firmly. They left the cave and moved fast. Jaren carried V in his arms while Nyla walked beside him, staying low, watching the trees. The forest was alive, but it was watching them, like a hungry predator. Hours passed before they found an old comms tower, rusted, half buried in vines, but still standing. Jaren climbed up and used what power was left in his old wrist unit to send out a distress signal. It beeped once, then died. He didn't know if anyone would come, but he couldn't wait. They had to keep moving deeper into the unknown toward the old outposts where his people once fought, where he hoped he might find supplies or answers. Nyla tugged his arm. Why are you helping? Us? She asked. You don't even know us. Jaren knelt to her level, his voice low and steady. Because once, someone helped me when I was small and scared. They didn't ask questions. They just saved me. Now it's my turn. In the distance, another roar echoed louder than before, followed by the stomping of many feet. The beasts were coming again, and this time they were bringing an army. The sky was turning gray, not from clouds, but from smoke. Jaren pushed through thick bushes, his wounded leg aching with every step. Nyla and V walked quietly beside him. Their faces were tired, but their eyes watched everything. They had seen too much too young. They were near the edge of the forest now, where an old human outpost once stood. Abandoned after the war, Jaren remembered it well, not because it was his post, but because of who used to command it, Commander Kale. The name alone made Jaren's jaw tighten. His past came back like a sharp blade to the chest. Kale had been his leader years ago, a man with cold eyes and smooth lies, a man who once promised peace, but sold secrets to alien warlords for power. Jaren had testified against him after the massacre at Gridfall, but Kale vanished before the court could arrest him. Now the clues were clear. The white masks, the beasts with human parts, the trackers, the twisted DNA. Kale was behind this, and he was using alien children for something dark. They reached the ruined gate of the outpost. Rusted and cracked, Jaren used his knife to pry it open. Inside, they found empty corridors, broken lights, and old metal crates. A few dried blood stains still marked the walls. This place smells like pain, Nyla whispered. Jaren nodded. Because it remembers. He led them into a control room, still half-powered. Screens blinked weakly. Jaren connected his wrist unit to the terminal and searched for files. The system fought him, but he was once trained in deep access protocol. He found a video file marked Project Ashbourne. He clicked it. The screen flickered. Then Kyle's face appeared. Older now, but still cold and smooth. His voice spoke through the speakers like poison. To control fear, we must become the monsters. Alien genetics offer strength, regeneration, and obedience. But pure-blood subjects fail. The answer lies in hybrid children, born with alien blood, but human command structures. The twins are perfect. Jaren clenched his fists. The twins weren't just survivors. They were targets, experiments, tools in Kale's plan to create a beast army loyal only to him. He looked over his shoulder at the girls. They stared at the screen in horror. Nyla whispered, "That's the man who took Mama." A deep growl echoed through the halls. Jaren shut the screen and turned fast, pulling the girls behind an overturned desk. Through a broken window, a large shape moved. One of the beasts. Its mask was gold instead of white, its body heavier, more armored. A leader. It sniffed the air, growled again, then turned away. Jaren waited until it left. Then he turned. To the girls, "He's here, Kale's here, and your mother. She's probably still alive." "How do you know?" Nyla asked, her voice full of trembling hope. "Because he still needs you," Jaren answered. "He wouldn't destroy his best subjects, not until the experiment is done." He checked. His weapons. Only 2 bullets left, 1 grenade, 1 blade. He would need more. He would need help. He searched the storage room and found something unexpected. An old suit of human battle armor, cracked but usable. He pulled it on, metal groaning against his skin. His strength returned, even if just a little. "We'll find her," he promised. "And we'll stop Kale." Before they could leave, the screen flickered again. A new message flashed across it. Unit 9 online, moving targets confirmed. Location: Sector Red, prepare capture. Kale knew they were here. Jaren turned to the twins. "We run now, or we're the ones who get caged." They slipped out the back tunnel as more beasts moved into the compound. Their feet splashed in cold water as they ran through the drain tunnels. Jaren limped but refused to stop. His eyes burned with anger and purpose. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were going to fight back. And this time, it was personal. The river roared like a wild beast in the dark. Its waters were red, not from the soil, but from the blood of creatures and fallen soldiers alike. Jaren stood at the edge, breathing hard. The twins were just behind him, their eyes wide as they stared at the violent current. "This is the only way out," Jaren said. "We cross this river and we leave Kale's hunting ground." "But we can't swim," Nyla whispered, her voice shaky. "It'll take us." Jaren looked around, searching fast. Trees bent low from fire and storm, but up ahead, a broken hover cart lay tipped on its side near the bank, a piece of military scrap. Its engines were dead, but the metal body could still float. He limped to it, dragging it upright. The inside was big enough for 2 small girls and some gear. He patched holes with cloth and melted plastic from his emergency pack. It wasn't perfect, but it was hope. He helped the girls climb inside, then tied the rope around his chest and the cart. "Hold tight," he said. "Whatever happens, don't let go." He stepped into the freezing river. The current grabbed him instantly, pulling hard. His wounded leg screamed in pain. But he held steady, dragging the cart behind him inch by inch. Halfway across, something moved in the water, a ripple, then a fin, then 3 more. The river beasts had come. Nyla screamed, pointing to a long gray shape circling beneath the cart. Jaren pulled harder, trying to reach the other side. But something slammed into him under the surface, sharp teeth tearing through his armor. He cried out, kicking wildly, stabbing down with his blade. Blood spilled into the water. His blood. The river turned darker. He twisted and drove the blade. Again, this time into the creature's eye, it let go and vanished below. He gasped for air. Still holding the rope, still swimming, the bank was close now, just a few meters. The twins called out, "Come on, don't stop." But then he saw it. On the other side of the river, waiting, were more beasts. Dozens of them. masks shining. In the firelight, claws ready. They had expected him to run this way. They had laid a trap. Jaren's mind raced. His body was failing, but his heart refused to give in. He pulled the cart to shore and lifted the girls out. Run into the trees. He said, "Hide, wait for my signal." "But what about you?" Nyla asked. "You're hurt." "I faced worse," he said, forcing a weak smile. "Now go." As the girls ran into the shadows, the beast stepped forward. Jaren stood alone, his knife in one hand, the river behind him. Smoke in the sky. His blood dripped onto the wet earth. The first beast attacked. He dodged and slashed, cutting it down. Another lunged. He stabbed upward, twisting hard, but there were too many. They swarmed him, claws tearing into his side, teeth biting, into his armor. Still he fought. Still he stood. He remembered his fallen team, the people Kale betrayed. He remembered the twins' faces, scared but brave. He remembered who he was. Not just a soldier, not just a fighter, but a protector. With a final roar, he pulled the grenade from his belt, ripped the pin, and dropped it into the mouth of the largest beast. The explosion shook the riverbank. Fire and blood filled the air. The remaining beasts scattered, fleeing into the woods, then everything went silent. Smoke curled into the sky once more. A small figure moved from the trees. Nyla. Her hands shook as she crawled toward the broken field. She found Jaren lying on the ground, blood soaking his side, eyes barely open. "You came back," he whispered. "You told us to wait for your signal," she said, crying. "I heard the boom." He smiled weakly. That was it. V joined her, wrapping her small arms around Jaren's chest. "Don't die," she whispered. "Please." Jaren closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "Not yet," he said. "Not while you still need me." The stars above shone through the smoke, but below, in the mud and blood, a promise had been sealed. The twins were safe for now, and Jaren still had strength to fight one more day. The sun had not yet risen, but the forest no longer burned. Smoke had drifted away with the wind, and the sky turned dark blue, cool and silent. Jaren lay beside a tree, his side still bleeding. The twins stayed close, their small hands pressing. Cloth over his wound, Nyla's eyes were wide and focused. V kept whispering, "Don't go to sleep." Jaren was weak, but not done. He sat up slowly, wincing. His voice came out rough. "We can't stay here, not now, not when Kale's still." "Has your mother?" Nyla nodded. "She's not far, I feel it." "How?" Jaren asked. "Twins in our kind," Nyla said quietly. "We can feel the ones who gave birth to us. Mama's pain is heavy. I can feel it pulling me south." Jaren had heard of this strange connection in alien species. Blood bonding, emotion sensing. He didn't fully understand it, but he believed it now, with the little energy he had left. He used an old stim pack to numb his pain. He patched his side with thick bandages from his kit. The armor was ruined, but he could still walk. They moved through narrow paths, stepping around bones and broken machines. They came to a canyon wall, and hidden behind thick vines was an old entryway. A metal door half sunk into stone. It looked like a mine shaft, but the symbols on the wall were human military script. "This is where he took her," Nyla whispered. "I can feel it." Jaren nodded and drew his knife. "Stay behind me." They entered the dark tunnel, the air cold and thick with silence. Faint humming could be heard deeper inside. Machines still running, lights flickering. It was not dead in here. It was alive. They passed through corridors, rusted stairs, and old signs. Some doors were locked, others broken wide open. Inside one room, Jaren found test tubes, empty but labeled. Some had strange liquid residue inside. Others had names, species codes, and on one label, Nyla's name. He froze, reading it again. Subject 217. Nyla, viable. Fusion, hybrid potential. High. V pointed to another tube with her name. "They kept us here," she whispered, "before we escaped." Jaren clenched his jaw. Rage boiled inside him. Kale had turned children into experiments. Monsters into tools, families into broken parts. They moved on, deeper into the lab, until they came to a large holding chamber, locked behind a glass wall and energy field. Inside, chained to the wall, was a tall, blue-skinned woman. Her hair hung in dark curls, her body thin from hunger, but her eyes, those glowing silver eyes, burned with fire, even in chains. "Mama," Nyla gasped. The woman looked up slowly. Her expression changed from fear to shock, then to tears. "My babies," she whispered, "you're alive." The field sparked as Jaren touched the control panel. Locked. Password required. No way to break it from the outside without alerting security. Then a voice came from the shadows. "I knew you'd—" "Come, Kale," he stepped out. Dressed in dark command armor, two mask-wearing beasts stood at his sides. His face hadn't aged much, but his eyes were colder than ice. "You always were soft, Jaren, protecting things meant to be weapons." "They're children," Jaren growled, stepping between Kyle and the twins. "Not tools," Kyle smiled. "They're keys to the future. The hybrids are stronger, faster, more loyal, and their mother, she's the final piece. Once I fuse their genes with the code, nothing will stop my army." "You're mad," Jaren said, knife in hand. Kale laughed softly. "Maybe, but power always looks like madness to those too weak to reach it." With a flick of his wrist, the beasts lunged. Jaren spun, slashing his blade across the first one's throat. The second tackled him, claws digging into his shoulder. He shoved it back and kicked it into the glass wall, cracking it with a loud thud. The twins screamed, clinging to the wall. Nyla banged her fists on the glass. "Mama, hold on." The chained woman, though weak, stood tall. She wrapped her hands around her chains, pulled, and with a scream of fury, snapped one free. Kale turned in shock. No, she's not ready. But it was too late. The mother ripped the other chain from the wall and charged the glass. She slammed into it with all her strength, shattering it. The energy field buzzed and exploded in sparks. Jaren pulled the twins back as their mother stood over Kale, blood dripping from her wrists, fire in her eyes. "You touched my children," she said, voice like thunder, and Kale finally looked afraid. The ground shook beneath their feet. Dust fell from the ceiling, and deep growls echoed through the broken tunnels. Somewhere far above, a loud horn sounded, low and cruel. It was not a warning. It was a call to war. Jaren helped the twins back from the shattered glass. Their mother stood like a warrior queen, tall and strong despite her bleeding wrists. She had no weapons, but her eyes burned like fire. Kale crawled backward. On the floor, his voice shaking. You don't understand. I built them to obey. They were supposed to obey me." The mother stepped closer, her voice calm and deadly. "You built monsters, but you never understood strength." Jaren turned as the ground trembled again. He looked at the hallway behind them, where dozens of red lights blinked in the dark. One by one, the beasts stepped forward, large, armored, all wearing bone masks. Claws scraped against the walls, their teeth dripping with hunger. Nyla held her sister tight. "There are so many," she whispered. "More than I've ever seen," Jaren said, pulling his knife. "He brought all of them." Kale stood again, behind his army. He smiled now, bloody but proud. "This is the future, and you're standing in its way." Jaren walked in front of the twins and their mother, his hands shaking, but not from fear, from purpose. He had nothing left to lose. "Then we ended here," he said. The beasts charged. The room exploded into chaos. Jaren ran straight into them, slashing, stabbing, dodging. A beast tackled him, but he rolled and drove his blade into its throat. Another one lunged, claws catching his arm. He gritted his teeth and slammed it against the wall again and again until it stopped moving. The mother fought with her bare hands, pulling chains from the floor and using them like whips. One beast tried to attack Nyla, but she screamed, and something in the air shifted. The beast paused, eyes wide, then dropped dead like its heart stopped. V began crying, not in fear, but in power. Her cry became a high-pitched sound wave that burst the ears of 3 nearby monsters. They fell to the ground, howling in pain. Jaren stared in shock. "They're not just kids." "No," the mother said, fighting beside him. Their evolution. Still, the beasts kept coming. More and more filled the tunnels. There were hundreds now. Kyle stood above it all, laughing like a mad king on a broken throne. You can't win, he shouted. I have 300 beasts, you're just one man. Jaren pulled a broken piece of steel from the ground and stood tall, blood dripping down his face. Then I'll kill 300. He charged again, cutting through the swarm. Fire burst from an old fuel line nearby, lighting up the room. The mother used the flames as cover, smashing beasts into the fire. V and Nyla stood behind her, their powers growing stronger with every scream, every memory of pain. Kale screamed, stop them, but it was too late. One by one, the beasts began to slow down. The twins' strange energy filled the air. Some creatures began turning on each other, confused and shaking. Others backed away as Nyla walked forward, glowing like a star. We're not your tools, she said. We are family, V whispered. Jaren limped beside them, his body broken but his soul on fire. Let's finish this, he said. With a final push, he threw the steel bar through Kale's chest. The commander gasped, stumbled, and fell from the platform. The beasts froze and then silence. Jaren dropped to his knees, barely breathing. The ground was littered with fallen monsters. Some still twitched, others vanished into smoke. The battle was over. The twins ran to him, hugging his neck. You did it, they cried. You really did it. Their mother knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around them all. No, Jaren whispered. We did it. Together. Above them, the lab lights flickered and died. Below them, nothing stirred. Around them was only ash, blood, and quiet victory. The battlefield was silent. Ash floated through the air like snow, and the fires had turned to embers. Broken walls stood like skeletons, and the scent of burnt steel clung to the ground. Among the fallen beasts, only 4 figures still breathed. Jaren sat against a wall, his armor torn, his face covered in blood and dirt. His eyes were half closed, his body numb, but he was alive. Barely. Nyla curled beside him, her head resting on his arm. V had fallen asleep in his lap, their small blue faces peaceful at last. No more fear, no more running. Across from him, the twins' mother stood silently. She watched, her daughters with soft eyes, then looked at Jaren, a quiet strength wrapped around her, something noble, something ancient. You did not have to fight for them, she said gently. You could have walked away. Jaren coughed, his voice dry. I almost did, but their eyes. They reminded me what I used to be. She knelt beside him and placed her hand on his chest. A soft glow passed from her fingers, easing his pain. His breathing steadied. His wounds slowed their bleeding. I was trained to destroy. Jaren whispered, but they made me protect again. The mother nodded. My name is Soraya. I am High Matron of the Orisari people. Our kind is nearly gone. Kyle hunted us, turned us into parts for his army. She looked down at her daughters, her voice shaking now. When he took them from me, I thought I would lose everything. But you brought them back, you gave me my family again. Jaren tried to sit up straighter, wincing. I didn't do it alone. No, she said. But you were the reason it began. She stood and walked to a stone console built into the far wall. Pressing her palm against it, she revealed a small hidden chamber. Inside was a glowing orb and a crest made of silver and blue crystal. She brought them over to him. This is our bonding crest, she explained. It is sacred to my people, passed only to those who protect the bloodline, who earn the right to be family. Jaren blinked slowly, not understanding. Soraya placed the crest in his hands. You are now one of us, if you choose to be. A father to them, a partner to me, a protector of what's left. Jaren stared at the object, feeling its warmth pulse in his palm. The word family echoed in his mind like thunder in a quiet valley. He had no home, no living blood, no past that he wanted to return to. But here, with these 2 small girls resting on him, and a proud mother offering him belonging, not as a soldier but as a man, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. I never thought I deserved this, he said softly. After everything I did in the war, Sireya smiled gently. No one deserves a second chance, but when it comes, we take it with both hands. Jaren looked at the twins, their soft breathing rising and falling in sync. What do I do now? Live, she answered. Help rebuild, help them grow, and let yourself be loved. He nodded slowly. I think I'd like that. The chamber began to collapse as alarms rang from deep underground. Backup systems were failing. But Jaren didn't panic. He lifted V into his arms. Nyla held his hand. Sireya walked beside them as they made their way to the surface, step by step, into the light. Outside, the forest was quiet again. The fire had passed, the beasts were gone. The wind moved gently through the trees, and for the first time in days, the sky was clear. They built a small shelter near the river where the stars could be seen at night. Jaren taught the twins how to set traps and boil water. They taught him how to laugh again. Sireya told stories of her people, and Jaren listened, always with eyes, full of wonder and quiet respect. They shared food, memories, and one night, a kiss beneath the stars, not a kiss of fire, but a kiss of healing. A family had been born in the ashes of war, and one man, once broken, was now whole again. Because the mother did not give him gold or power or glory, she gave him something far more rare, a place to belong,